Hey everybody, welcome back to the Creator's Conscience. We've been in lockdown for like 3 months, and another thing that's been in lockdown has been my laptop. Yeah, I at the start of lockdown here in the UK, I sort of I put it in for repairs to get a new battery, and then the very next day, the United Kingdom went into lockdown, and that included all non-essential stores. So I've had to wait like 2 months and a half to get my laptop back and entertain myself however I can. But one of the ways I was doing that, one of my old buddies, DeVaughn Taylor, big horror guy, absolutely love him to bits. We've been mates on the internet for a while now. I've been on his show. He's been on a few of my shows. Today I'm welcoming him back. DeVaughn, it is good to see you again, buddy.
It is good to see you, and yeah, like it's kind of crazy, like because when you did say like back in the day, like you are one of the like internet people that I've been friends with for like a good amount of time, and like have like kept consistent contact with for a few years now at this point.
Yeah, it's been wild. Like we were there in like this Screen Junkies Plus days. Fucking I think the first movie we ever talked about was like Scream. Actually, before we when I set this up with you, I did go back and listen to those old Jesus Takes the Real episodes, the one I appeared on, and then your episode of Movies and Me where we talked Nightmare Before Christmas. This is sort of just going to be like an overall discussion on who you are as a creator, why you love horror, especially since we started talking. There's been kind of a resurgence of horror, and something that I'm loving, that I'm always talking about on the show, new perspectives in horror that we're getting, especially since with the rise of Jordan Peele, and more lately this year, we're going to see Nia DaCosta open up with Candyman, which I know you're a huge fan of, so we'll we'll definitely get into that. But firstly, DeVaughn, why don't you just tell my new audience, since more people listen to this now than before, who you are, a bit about yourself, and how you got into horror, and who you are as a creator.
Yeah, I do a lot of things. I write, I do, I had a podcast previously that was a general, like, Jesus Take the Real was a general movie podcast. And now over the years, I have focused in on horror, which has always been, my main genre love as far as movies go. So just over the few years, I did some writing for Nightmare on Film Street. I wrote for them for, a good 2.5 years. Put out a lot of stuff there, and like, just being able to kind of zone in on like, where my potential audience would be, but where my love is and where my passion is. And just kind of zoning in on that. So, I also do a lot of photography. My photography is usually portraits that have some sort of sexual, sensual, spooky vibe to them. And I do like little shorts like that too, like just like little like 30-second shorts. Working on some more short films, but I don't know. I do a little bit of everything. I like to write, I like to podcast, but ultimately I want to be a filmmaker and create
Have
horror
you published
films.
any of those short films or like sent them to festivals? Because I haven't seen any of those, and I know you pretty well.
Nah, yeah, no. I have, man. It's tough, because like one editing is. I'm a above average editor. I know more than the average person, I suppose, but that's not like my thing. So that's what always gets me hung up whenever I have I'd say a good 3 or 4 short films that I would be comfortable with, that if I get it edited to like, that I had good enough footage that if I edit it down and get to where I would be at, that I would feel comfortable submitting to some festivals and things of that nature. But for now, the only things I've published are just like, like I said, like little 30-second, like I even call them just moving photographs. I don't really call them short films, because it's just like one idea with some backing music and something like that to it. So but yeah, but here soon, now that I've revamped and like started this new podcast, and I'm kind of changing the brand over a little bit and retooling the YouTube account, I'm gonna start putting out some more shorts I've been shooting.
Yeah, I noticed
lately.
that unlike Bloody Bunch, you didn't smoke up a joint like right when we started this. Is that just like a sort of branding thing for your own show? Do you just save that for your own stuff? Like,
Oh no, I got the bong next to me and I hit that up. Like I hit that up before we started. My throat is a little like sore right now because joints are a little bit harsher on your throat, and I recorded for like 2 hours
Yeah,
yesterday.
I saw you were
So
watching.
yeah,
the
but
new
no,
Child's Play movie, weren't you?
yeah, I
Ugh.
did it. I caught up, covering the entire franchise in 3 parts over my podcast, which is called the Blade Blunt Cinema Club. And but yeah, I did the whole series over these past 2 weeks. Recorded the 3 episodes, and it's such a ride. I love it so much.
And then that
And then
happened.
and
Like,
well, you know what the funny thing is? I liked it a lot more than I wanted to. like I'm not one of those people. I don't go into movies rooting against them. That's not like, what's the fun in that? But at the same time, I just had this weird disdain for the way that the Child's Play remake was made, with the rights usage and still making this movie even though the series was still going, and just like the way that they slapped Don Mancini in the face, to make this movie. I just could never vibe with it. So that's why I rooted against it. But then I watched it. It's actually it's a pretty good quality movie. The plot is, it's all right.
It's no more sillier than the original Child's Play plot, is it?
No, and I do see where they call it a reimagining, even, just like this other scenario. But at the same time, the biggest thing was I watched it, and like I said, it was actually pretty solid. It had some great kills. It looks really great. Like, it's a great looking film, and Bear McCreary has a really great score for it. The thing is, all they had to do is change all the names and change the design of the doll, change the name of the doll, and it could have been its own. It could have been its entire own thing.
Was the plan?
We could have had.
Someone was like, "This sounds similar to Child's Play. Let's just pop it in there."
Well, see, I couldn't find a concrete answer on that, because that's what you would assume. But what it is MGM has the rights to the original Child's Play only. Just that, because they made the first Child's Play under MGM, and then they made all the other ones under Universal after Universal acquired it. But MGM, with some clause in the contract, still had the rights to the original Child's Play, so they could remake just the original if they wanted to. And so that's what they did, because obviously the iconography of Chucky, they're good. Which, I don't know, because it is weird, like, the movie, even if they did make it a whole different movie, was going to get compared to Child's Play one way or another. So I guess it's like, we might as well just make it a remake. But at the same time, it's like, back in the 90s, we had Child's Play, Demonic Toys, and the Puppet Master movies all coexisting together. So it could have just been its own movie and its own franchise, like, of this techno thriller, malfunctioning doll. Like, and I thought it was interesting. They did a lot of interesting things in it, but the way it was made, I have too much respect for Don Mancini.
That's kind of the same attitude I have with how Stephen King's The Shining was made into a movie. I'm pretty infamous on the internet for not liking how Stanley Kubrick approached it. I even made like a whole video on it, and there's people in the comments being like, "Yeah, but this is like an auteur work of art." I'm like, I fucking know that, and I can respect it as that kind of thing, but I don't know, there's just something about that book that speaks differently to me, and I wish the movie would have addressed it more. And I wouldn't say I hated the new Child's Play. I actually thought some of the kills were pretty cool. Mark Hamill's performance as Chucky, I was a bit mixed on, because I know Brad Dourif is kind of really encaged in my mind as that character, and it's strange.
I love Mark Hamill, and I felt like they didn't use him very well. I felt like they didn't utilize him.
It felt like
Mark
he was
Hamill,
just doing a Joker voice, really.
Kind of, yeah.
God. But luckily, we're not here to cover the 2019 Child's Play. I really just popped that in because that's the last thing you covered. We're mostly here to talk about what you are as a filmmaker. And I like that you're kind of expanding into short films now, because me and you have always talked about this, right? Horror as an idea has endless creative potential. And even when it comes to things that are getting remade and reimagined, like... I'm very excited for the new Candyman for that reason, and I was excited for it when it was first started, but when Nia DaCosta released that sort of short film where it's like the stick figures and all that, talking about what the tone of the movie is going to be. Instantly, that movie just shot up my hype list. Like, I really love the kind of tone she's going for with this. I've got a few theories on who Yahya Abdul-Mateen II's role is going to be. I feel like he's getting possessed by Candyman. Maybe. I don't know.
I mean, if you check the, I mean, I don't want to spoil things for you, but you'd learn some things. All you gotta do is check the IMDb page.
Yeah, I've been avoiding those.
And I think you're if it's the theory that I had, I won't spoil it.
Fair enough.
Dude, it's the answers are out there. I will say that. As far as what's coming up with that new movie, and yeah, it's very interesting. I'm intrigued to see the way it's gonna happen. But I love the tone so far of it. They actually just released like another like little 30-second snippet.
This morning. I did see that this morning before I went on my run.
Yeah, but yeah, that little animated short film was so cool. But yeah, horror films just in general do have these like endless possibilities, and as far as making short films go, because it's like I want to be a filmmaker and make full feature length films and stuff like that. But what you can do with short films is especially as you take the ideas that obviously you would want to use like in a bigger context but couldn't. So it's like, okay, I can make this like little short film and still make an impact with it. And I think you can, since everybody's making content and anybody can make short films these days, it's also kind of gotten to a point now where it's short films are more focused on the actual story and what's going on and just the message that's trying to make, because your short films, everybody's not focusing on having the highest quality anymore. People are just saying, I can shoot this on my iPhone. If it's a good story, it's a good story, so it's like technology has also given us these like endless possibilities for people to shoot short films. It's like, because like I've done that. I have short films I've shot entirely on my phone just to try it out and see what it was like. And then I have it shot on a different camera, and I have one shot on my photography camera, and regardless of like what I'm shooting them on, as long as it's interesting, it's going to be interesting, And so that's and it's just practice, obviously. It's filmmaking just requires practice just like anything else, and it's just like working out, even so that's why I feel like even if I don't release some of these shorts, just I learn a lot in just making them. I was house sitting for some good friends of mine last weekend. I was house sitting and they have this giant house, and I was like, oh man, I finally have it to myself, because usually I watch their kids and their dogs, but everybody was gone. So I was like, I finally have the house completely to myself. I need to shoot something in here. So I did. I shot this like little ghost short that this one actually will be released here pretty soon. But I shot this like little ghost story short in the house just because I had this empty house. All I had with me was I had my little Canon power shot. I had a tripod. I had some roller skates, and I had a sheet with a cool pattern on it, and let's see what I can make in this sprawling house, and just like, just try to make something interesting. And I do plan on releasing that, but like, I learned little lessons in that of like, just being like, I remember I spent 2 hours shooting, or I spent an hour and a half shooting in one room, and I was like, I have so much more to do, move on. And so then I just like kind of got on this kick that I would only shoot it like 1 or 2 times, like kind of Clint Eastwood style, and just being like, good enough, move on, like figure it out later, figure it out later. If it's not what you want, exactly, figure it out later. But like, so it's just like, even when you're just shooting these things, I'm shooting them by myself, you learn just like, these like little problem solving things that arise when you're, just making a little short on your own. So I don't know. It's just, just practicing in general.
Yeah, I totally get that. And this kind of speaks to what me and you are like as friends. The minute you're describing that, like, I'm instantly imagining that whole idea of, say, a guy like you going into dog house sit for like a big family, and then they all leave. That seems like it could be a setup for a horror film in and of itself.
Exactly. I've actually shot 2 films with kind of a similar premise. I shot one that I'm like the one acting in, and I shot one that my buddy acts in that it was also like a house sitting premise. But and that was one that I like shot all on my iPhone. So it was like, yeah, just like, like, okay, here, like, and for that one, it's like, a guy waiting for his roommate to leave to go out of town. And while he's out of town, it's like, that like classic like montage of like people doing the shit that they do when their roommates aren't gone, running around naked. But then stuff gets weird, and he starts like setting up like this like ritual in the living room.
Just hears like a wolf whistle as he's running around naked, or like...
Exactly. It's just like, oh, this is weird, but you can just find anything that if it's an idea, it's just like you can do it.
Yeah,
I don't know, or trying.
I feel that's very true in like a lot of ways people are making content now. Like I've been doing video essays for 3 years, and I'm honestly at that point where I'm getting kind of burnt out on doing the same old format with it. And it feels almost like you have to try and reinvent yourself with every new video. And then I was talking to some of my other friends who are video essayists, and we're essentially thinking of them now not as these like essays, but almost as like little documentaries. Because it's a similar kind of setup, right? And I feel like with making horror films like that, like you didn't consciously go into that house with like an idea, like you didn't have a plan of I'm gonna write a script and then I'm gonna shoot a horror film. You kind of just took your camera, had a good eye for stuff, and then just see what you can make of it. And that's where I feel this genre is just really beautiful for a lot of first-time creators, because the thing I love about horror is there's simplicity in like the plot stuff, but all the complex stuff of horror, all the like the really good fatty stuff that we really love, that all comes from really great character storytelling, great cinematography, great use of camera, and you seem like a guy who understands that very well.
I mean, I think that's why I do photography is what I tell people, because a lot of people, when they ask about my photography, they're like, oh, do you like do gigs, or are you like trying to sell prints or like stuff like that? And I'm like, no, it's more I just like to learn how to build a good image and something that looks and figuring out the skill of being able to make someone feel something by just looking at
like
an
the kid
image.
from Boyhood,
like
essentially.
Yeah, and I mean, it sounds so pretentious. Like I know the way I don't think it sounds
pretentious. It just sounds like passionate to me.
But it's like I don't have an agenda with it. It's like, except for I think it's training an aspect of me for filmmaking, of being able to, just being able to create something. It's like, I don't want to do it, but it's like, I fucking look at these TikTokers and the things that some of the creativity that is coming out of TikTok sometimes. The only thing with TikTok is it's just so saturated with, any and everything. But there's some genuine, like, real creative stuff out there, or these different YouTube channels, like you said, kind of adapting their platforms, like. Some of them do like a talk show format, like Patrick Willems, or some are still doing the video essay like format, like Ryan Hollinger, and then or just like even getting away from like those kind of creators. Like one of my favorite YouTube channels lately that I just found is his name is Jeff Wittick, I think is his last name, and his show is Jeff's Barbershop, and he's a real life barber. But they like kind of do that like that real but surreal aspect, like where they're like playing themselves but like a little hyped up, and he just does these like weird editing tricks and just like creates this like really strange vibe. And he has this like weird cousin as a co-host, and it's just a very simple show. It's just him cutting people's hair and making weird interactions between them. But it's just like, hey, that's like an interesting way to just entertain someone, and that's what any of the creators online are just trying to do, is trying to find a different, interesting way. But you gotta like find that thing that like separates you from the other people.
What would you say that thing is for you? Because I know what it's like for me. Like I know when I sit down to write a story, my main selling point is I love the idea of the hero-villain relationship, because there's so much potential there that I feel a lot of writers miss out on. And you even think of some of the best horror movies, like the relationship between Sidney and the Ghostface identity, or Laurie Strode and Michael Myers. It's really fascinating, like, how the hero and the villain sort of mirror each other, and I like to write stuff like that. So what would you say is, like, your style, or are you still kind of figuring it out?
Yeah, I mean, I'm still figuring it out. I know that, like, I know there's a lot of things that, like, I literally I write a shit ton of notes in my phone.
Oh, I know.
A lot of them. And one of them is literally just says things I want to put in my films in the future. Just like things that I know that, like, oh, like I want to include, like, like I want to have this really brutal fight scene going, specifically set to keep me hanging on, the version, the old school version from the 60s. I specifically want that at some point. Why? I don't know. Or, like, one thing I said, I was like, I'm gonna make, like, very brutal horror movies and put sitcom credits at the end of all of them. I don't know. That's just something I want to see. But as far as, like, now, like, or, like, I guess, like, what people take from my stuff or what they see is, like, I don't try to I try to keep it grounded to a degree. Like, everything is a simple premise, but then just putting that slight horror twist on it.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be so, like, so any of the screenplays that I'm writing, yeah, they have, like, supernatural elements and stuff to them, but it's like a lot of the times they're just presented, like, very matter-of-factly.
Yeah, in almost like a macabre kind of way, really. Like,
yeah, like, I don't know, like, I do want to have, like, or create, like, a surreal atmosphere where it's like, this looks like normal life, but something about it is wrong. Something is off. Something is different. Like, or I just want it to be, like, my version of the world.
Yeah, I totally get that.
So, I don't know. So it's like everything's not overtly dark. I mean, things are dark, but usually darkly funny. A lot of my screenplays do, but, like, very big explosive scenes of violence, but then everything is I'm very musical. A lot of these, like, moving photographs that I do on Instagram, I just take a song that I really like at the time and I remix it a little bit myself, like putting different effects and stuff on it to give it that horror vibe to it. So I'm a very musical person as well. So that's something that's going to happen. Like, I'm trying to write a werewolf horror musical.
That sounds like the best thing ever, to be honest.
But in the tone of, like, but in the way that, like, Scott Pilgrim is a musical, not like
a classical musical in the sense, like,
yeah, not sung dialogue, but there's a lot of music and it drives the plot still, like that kind of stuff. Like, because I think like that's something I think of a lot as well. So I don't know, almost like horror music video would be if I had to describe, like, what my ideal films will be. I do a lot of things in black and white is what people do know me for. I love black and white because, color can kind of overstimulate an image sometimes. And if it's not important to what you're writing, like if the color isn't important to, like, either a character trait or, something in the scene, then get rid of it. I don't need it. Whatever. I just want because then when you have black and white, I focus on the lines and the shapes and the composition of the image, because I originally, before I dropped out of college, I was art education, so I did, like, a lot of, like, theory as far as, like, composition and stuff goes. So that's, like, the kind of stuff that I care about. So I like black and white because you can also, like, just get this drama from it instantly. You can just instantly get that dramatic feeling, and it, like I said, also just, like, kind of adds to that, just, like, kind of otherworldly, like, especially now when you see current things, a modern world, but in black and white, it just feels kind of weird.
Yeah, well, the only time I really see that is, like, when, say, you'll take a show that's having a flashback to an earlier time period, like the Watchmen TV show. I've just started watching that. I'm pretty sure that starts off in black and white. or there's some scene of it that's in black and white. I don't know. I have to go back and finish that show, but mostly the thing that I'm getting at here is from when we started first talking and to now, I can sort of tell you've like really matured and grown a lot as an artist. Like with this, I can sort of remember the first thing you ever pitched to me, or when you had me on Jesus Takes the Reel. It was something like it was kind of in the vein of Drive, but as a slasher movie or something like that. You can remind me if I'm wrong. But then hearing all these like wild ideas like come out of your mind now, it's just, it kind of shows that like with perspective in that, like a thing a lot of writers I think say is that usually we have too much ideas and we don't know the ones to focus on. You seem very focused in that regard. Is there like a trick you have to doing that, or is it just like you write something down, maybe something will come of it later?
I mean, it's like, so I only have like a handful of screenplays actually like started and going, but I love to outline stuff. Like I'll outline an idea, like the characters, the world, and I don't know. I think it's almost the opposite for me. Is just like, just not having excess and like weirdness in it for. It doesn't have to always mean something. I'm somebody, I don't believe in like that, like style over substance. If it's something that, even if it's not important or having some sort of big message, if it's just like simply there to look good and to feel good or to have like an energy to it, or just to be wildly entertaining, if it matters and it's entertaining, then sure, put it in. Cool. Like, so like that's whenever I'm just like, if I have a weird idea, I'm like, I can work it in somehow, but it's a good idea. I'm going to run with it, know, whether I have a plan for it or not, like, it'll work itself out.
So what kind of like director could you see yourself becoming? Cause the ideas you're kind of pitching to me don't sound like a studio would take them. This feels very like indie, you want to go at it your own way kind of thing, like maybe A24 or Blumhouse or something like that.
Yeah, definitely that like either smaller or mid-tier studio. But the thing that's always been great about the horror genre, why it's so great for up and coming filmmakers, is because a lot of the times you're coming up with something that is tangible, that you can do, that is going to be cheap to do. So you have a higher chance of someone giving you money for something that, as long as it's like feasible to do and it's going to be cheap, you're more likely to get the money and be able to keep, your creative control, versus, if you're pigeonholed to the studio. So yeah, like I don't see a lot of movies that I think of going big budget, except for like I do have a couple. Like I think the alternative superhero genre is gonna have a resurgence soon. I think after, now that Marvel kind of had their big finale and they don't really know what they're doing going forward, and DC's just kind of making random movies now, people are kind of over the like, the big comic book name superhero movies. I think the alternative superhero movie genre, like movies that were made like in the earlier 2000s, like Jumper and Push and Chronicle, like alternative, superhero movies like that, I think we'll see a resurgence, and studios willing to give them, these, because, I think they've kind of figured out how to get most superhero movies like under 20 million now. After Deadpool, what they did with their small budget for the first one, I've noticed pretty much every studio now isn't putting nearly as much money into them anymore, like into these big tentpoles. So I could see like some of these more interesting superhero ideas, a mid-tier studio taking that and saying, yeah, I'll give you $5 million to do that. Sure, why not? But $5 million to an indie film director, they can work with that. That's a lot to work with, So I think that's a genre that'll kind of have a resurgence, but then that's why we're able to get these really interesting horror movies now, because studios like A24 and Neon and Annapurna are giving, these indie filmmakers that are used to just working with nothing, and then giving them a $1 to $5 million budget and allowing them to really show off what that director can do. So I guess that would be the direction I go in, and that's where short films come in, because you can make a short film for, like I have like screenplays that I'm working on, and then I'll take like maybe a section of it, make a short film, and just have that as a pitch with the outline. So that way I can pitch to studios and being like, oh, hey, look, here's a short film that I put out that is a shortened version of, kind of how David F. Sandberg did with Lights Out.
Right now, anyway.
And that's how he got rolling.
And then,
so I guess that's the trajectory
I
see.
Look at what happened to David F. Sandberg after that. He gets to do Annabelle Creation, which I haven't seen it in a while, but I remember enjoying it. And then he gets to do Shazam, which is like probably my favorite superhero movie of the last couple years. It spoke to me quite a lot as a foster kid, but I don't know. It kind of sounds. It sounds to me like you'd be going for almost like the auteur indie, which is a term I've just made up, and I feel that's sort of. I think that's making a resurgence into horror as well, with like people like Ari Aster coming in and doing these like weird little ideas, and then them sort of like becoming these huge successes. Like Hereditary, I remember that. I think the success of Hereditary was out due to word of mouth, and then the same for Midsommar and whatever he's doing next. Same with like maybe a Robert Eggers. Like so many people were talking about The Witch like the year it came out, and then The Lighthouse just came out, and it's like on a lot of people's top tens of last year. So I don't know. I could see you going into like the sort of auteur indie thing, even though I've just made that up now.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the directors that like I look up to and like that I kind of try to mold some of my techniques after are in that category. People like Nicholas Winding Refn, or like you said, like Ari Aster, Robert Eggers. Like especially like Robert Eggers is like so interesting because, like I said, he's making these movies in black and white. Well, The Witch isn't in black and white, but it's basically in black and white. Yeah, I
get what you mean.
And he's having the confidence to write these scripts that are so specific and exactly what he wants, and saying no. If I'm gonna make this movie, I'm shooting it on location. We're using natural lights. We're building shit. Like, stuff like that. Darren Aronofsky, another person that I would say, like, I kind of mold, the things after, like, if I'm doing it, like, it, because, yeah, like, at first I thought of, like, the idea of, like, trying to write screenplays and, like, sell them, and just, like, sell them and let them get made. But I don't think I could do that,
either.
Is what I'm realizing. Is like, because it's already hard enough for me to finish a screenplay as it is. I'm not like one of those like machine type writers. I take my time a lot. So now I'm just like, yeah, if I'm going to write something out, there's no way I'm not directing it myself.
That's totally fair. That's actually, that's why I kind of left screenwriting all those years ago and went into becoming an author. Because like, even if someone does take like a book and adapt it, I can still say for sure, like, the book, that's my baby. That's my art. But I also get that author writing and writing books is very different than writing screenplays. I've learned that the hard way. I've been writing the same fucking book since we met for that reason.
Yeah.
But have you ever had a chance to like pitch to studios and stuff, or is that like a confidentiality thing? You can't reveal that.
Oh no, I can tell you I haven't pitched to any studios or anything because, like I said, it's like, I mean, I still have yet to finish a screenplay, but because I've realized that's not my bag as much either. I'm not as much of a writer. I'm an ideas guy, but then I can take an idea and visualize it and build it out and what it would look like, what it would feel like. So it's like, I like what I'm kind of doing just like in day-to-day right now is like I'm kind of doing like, creative direction in for like music videos and photo shoots and like stuff like that. Because I could also see myself if I could take a script that I like and see it and be like, okay, well, let me do my rewrites, and then I could direct that too, because I know how to take the idea and mold it and what it's gonna look like. I just can't always put it down on to paper.
I totally get that.
So that's why I'm a visual guy with photography, because I can just show you, like you said, like whenever I shot that little short last week, did I write a script or anything for it? No, I wrote out a basic shot list and then just went to work. That's, I don't know. I'm an ideas guy.
That's kind of the beauty of filmmaking, I feel. And I hope this is okay to talk about, and you can clearly tell me to fuck off if it's not. I know you're also a queer person like I am, yeah? Yeah. Do you ever feel like a part of that part of you ever like goes into your stories? Because like I'm writing strictly queer stories now, and right now I can't even ever see myself going back to how I used to write, because I've seen there's such a demand for it in the book world, and like especially since I write kids books, especially for them to be able to see themselves reflected in at that age, it could probably help normalize it. But with horror, I feel there's an inherent queerness to it anyway. Is that something like you try to do at all?
I mean, it's not something I try to do, but I just try to treat it as it should be in real life. That's just as a normal thing, like, because like I don't know, that's how I treat my sexuality. It's not something that I adamantly go out to express to people that like hate or remind people that I'm queer and bisexual. It's just I am. It's just and then if somebody asks, it's just like, oh yeah. And then they're like, oh, and then they're like, you're so casual, and I'm like,
because that's what it is.
Like, it's just because that's what it is. So I don't go out of my way in an idea to like try to write in a queer character or queer elements. If something just feels gay in the script, it's just a little gay in the script. I don't know,
you just roll with
or
it,
it's
really.
just if the character, like I do have like I'm writing one where the protagonist is bisexual, but it has a reason to be because there's a lot of sexual themes in that script. So, but then I have other ones where or they're either all straight or I just don't say because it's just like, it's, it is what it is. But if it matters, then yeah, I'm definitely writing it in. But I mean, I guess it's not something that I'm like, I must include somebody. If I get the chance to, I will. And if I don't, then it won't.
That's kind of where I am as well. Like, I want people to know me as just like this nerdy writer with cool ideas and like confident in that. But I only specifically asked this because there's such a big idea of what queer writers should be now, even from people inside the community, and that really bothers me. Like, I don't know if you saw this thing I tweeted yesterday. Like, someone had an unpopular opinion thing about Gambit, and I basically went and said, I think Gambit's really cool. I think a solo Gambit film has a lot of creative potential. You could do like a really sexy rom-com with him and Rogue. You can make it like a heist movie.
That's what I said. Yeah,
so I love that we're on the same mind with that. But then this random guy just in the comments goes, yeah, you're not a Gambit fan. You guys in the queer community would have him cancelled for his charming rogue nature. Like, don't pretend you're a fan of this. Like, Gambit's been my favorite X-Men character since I was a kid. And I don't know where this idea came from that all queer writers want everything to be like righteous little angels and no one to have any personality flaws or quirks, but it's not fucking true. And especially with you as a horror director and writer, horror is not like unproblematic. There's going to be shit in there that's going to freak people out. But I don't get where that idea came from, so that's kind of why I brought it up, because I want to air that shit out. It's been really bothering me all day.
No, I mean, I think that's really ridiculous. That, I mean, it goes both ways. Like, of course, like there's people outside the queer community that, like it says, it's like they have the assumption of what the queer community is going to think about something or the way they're going to portray something or why they portray something the way that they do. But then it's like, because they're also within the queer community is like the expectation that, hey, you're a part of the queer horror community. You need to, show it and be an example and include these things in your work. And I think that is how sometimes something will happen and a message will feel, beaten over your head versus just it being there. Because it feels like it was forced to be there because they felt like they needed to write it in.
I feel like it should be a choice, so not like something people expect. Like, I choose to write queer identities in my stories because it helps me relate with the characters more. But equally so, if I wanted to write like a fucking a Spider-Man comic or something like that, I would adhere to how Peter Parker is in my head. Or like I've had a pitch for writing a solo comic on Electro before, and like I just want to write cool stories, and that may happen to have a bit of queerness in them, but I don't like the idea that all queer writers should have a responsibility to be role models to every kind of queer person, because that's just impossible, and the experiences are going to be totally different. Like you and me, for example, we've probably got very different queer experiences, and it should be our choice whether that's anybody's business or not, or whether that should go into our work. That's how I sort of feel on the whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, just in recently, and like, you know, covering these Chucky movies, and like, you know, and Don Mancini's evolution as a creator across the series, you know, he the first three movies didn't write, you know, pretty much any like queerness into those three films except for Child's Play 2. A lot of people, Kyle is obviously bisexual.
I feel that.
She just is, but he didn't, in those first three films, he didn't write anything inherently queer into them. And then Bride and Seed of Chucky, and then Bride of Chucky, he starts throwing some like little gay crumbles in there. He throws some little gay breadcrumbs in there. But then Seed of Chucky is just like, this movie is so queer, it's in your face. And then he made a statement. And then I noticed in Curse and Cult of Chucky, there's queer elements, but they're not. But it's not a overly queer film per se. So it's interesting on just like the way that, like, you know, he goes from, you know, he has his scripts where he didn't write it at all. He had his scripts where he wrote some in. He had his scripts where he wrote a lot in, and he never felt that, you know, the pressure to do it either way. But then like on like another side is like, I didn't realize Clive Barker was gay. Which I had no idea.
And that suddenly is making a lot more sense.
Exactly. It makes a lot more sense. But like, you know, so, and then like going into like all the hell that he went through trying to make the Hellraiser movies, and them trying to pull back some of the more queer and sexual elements. And then I guess after that is when he just stopped trying whenever he made any, you know, Hollywood films after that. He just kind of made his films the way they were, and then it was just kind of that. And then, like you said, it's like nobody even knew that Clive Barker was gay. So I don't know.
Did you see his pitch for The Mummy?
Because, no, I did not.
I remember reading it like a couple months ago and just being like, why didn't this movie get made? Because he basically took the idea of The Mummy and like, I believe there was like some sort of transgender rep into it with how The Mummy came about, and the way he did it was like really fascinating. And I can imagine why back in the 90s they didn't want to make that. They thought it was too risque, but that's like something I would want to see now, especially with how shitty the last Mummy movie was and with how great The Invisible Man was. Like, fucking get him back to do one of those Blumhouse solo horror films now.
Yeah, I mean, it was, you know, again, it was like, I guess it was a times thing, and that's why it's like, was kind of crazy that, you know, Don Mancini got to make Seed back in 2004, and it's like, even then it feels like that's like such like a, whoa, like, nobody was making things including transgender themes in it, like, nobody. So, and I mean, still barely now.
It is kind of getting a little bit higher in the books community. I've read books from trans and non-binary authors almost like exclusively lately, like and in comics as well. There's this great one I read last year called "I Wish You All the Best" by Mason Deaver. I interviewed them on the show last year as well. That book's basically like this really cute contemporary story, kind of John Hughesy, but with a transgender kid. And then on the other side, my friend AJ, who I think you'd get along with, by the way, sent me his book about, it's this trans boy who kind of has this disease inside and becomes like a full-on body horror monster. And then there's this whole cult that are like religious fanatics and stuff. It's kind of similar to The Last of Us 2 now that I think about it, but a lot of the horror elements in there, like that stuff that a lot of people would view as, if you're a transgender writer, you should be writing responsibly. You shouldn't be writing all this gross shit. And he recently came back, firing back at that. I was like, no, fuck you. I'm a trans boy, and I'm gonna make this the way I fucking want to. And more power to him for it. Like, I can't wait to physically buy it when it comes out.
Yeah, because it's, you can't tell someone what their, experiences are. So it's like you can't. So if that's the transgender experience from his point of view, then that is his view of it. That's that. I remember a couple of years ago, you would really appreciate this. Me and my friend, we went to go see a musical parody version of Edward Scissorhands.
I've fallen in love with that movie the past 2 years. I'm wearing a fucking Edward Scissorhands shirt right now.
Oh shit! I literally didn't even read your shirt, but we went and saw a live musical parody version of it, and with the song choices that they chose to do it and the way that was portrayed, they made it a transgender story. They made Edward Scissorhands transgender. But they did it in such a subtle, organic way, and applying it to a story that you wouldn't have thought it about. But then it's just like, well, duh.
It does make sense.
Edward Scissorhands was literally just a made object almost. So it's like, and the act, and it was played by a woman in the show, played as a woman, or the actress was a woman, but then played it pretty just like flat, like neutral, and it was really good. It was a really great show.
Did they make the Anthony Michael Hall character in that? There's like a massive transphobe.
Yes, because like that was a thing. It was just every time like people would call Edward by one pronoun, someone would call him by a different pronoun. So that was like kind of like the running thing throughout it. And then his character was just like, he, she, it, I don't care, like blah blah, and like,
no, we're gonna push you out of
like
the castle,
kind of. So that's the yeah. They did have the actor who played him sing Sledgehammer though, and that was pretty dope.
That is pretty. If there's like any video recordings of that online, I gotta look that up. I fucking love Edward Scissorhands, like that. Honestly, like when we first met, like I wasn't really a big Tim Burton fan, but then I saw Edward Scissorhands one summer, and I was like, this is kind of what I would write if I was given like a sort of John Hughesy style story to do, because I feel Edward Scissorhands is almost like a gothic take on a John Hughes story. Even having Anthony Michael Hall in there as the villain kind of solidifies that.
Yeah, you could look at it that way. I always like to look at it as like kind of like Tim Burton makes those like dark fairy tales. Like I always kind of think a lot of his movies fall in that camp as well. But yeah, Edward Scissorhands is so good. It's really good. One of Danny Elfman's best scores.
I listen to that score whenever I'm writing now. And we're going to get into a sort of final segment here. Since we've been talking about this for the whole episode, we've been talking about like what you want to do as a filmmaker, what your goals are. I'm sort of going to bring it back to when we first started hanging out and we did like pitch stuff. And I know me and you have been talking about this online as well. Whenever I post a picture of Dane DeHaan, should be the next Freddy Krueger. Like, you're one of the people that's in my mentions about that. But I'm curious, like, if you had a chance to take like any well-known horror property, like Nightmare, Friday the 13th, Halloween, or whatever, is there any idea of what you would do with it or how you would bring your own style to it?
Yeah, I've thought about it multiple times. I mean, like I said, I'm already writing a werewolf story, but it's not like a wolf. It's not like a take on the Wolfman, though. It's just a werewolf story. However, if I like taking one of the popular horror properties, I would do Hellraiser. I mentioned Hellraiser a little bit ago. And I like the first two Hellraisers for what they were at the time. And, they're nice and weird. They have some gross effects. And it's cool. But I think, there was just so much. They tried to have more of like the sexual deviancy themes in that. And like really exploring the themes of the line between pleasure and pain, and can incorporate, modern BDSM culture into it somehow. Like there's just so much more potential for that franchise than what they did with it when they made it. I always say that, I would love to see a Hellraiser remake with like Gaspar Noé doing it or Lars von Trier doing it. Let's get real fucking weird with it. Like, let's basically like make it, unrated, And so if I was given the reins, I would take that property and I'd make some, like, it would just be weird and violent and sexual, but but it would be very queer because just the inherent world that it could explore, you know? Like, there's out here in LA, there's this BDSM nightclub. I mean, everything's closed right now, but it's a fucking BSM nightclub, and it goes from midnight to 6 a.m.
Damn. Okay.
And just like, and it's a wild time. And I can just only imagine like shit like that in a current Hellraiser movie now. Yeah. So I don't know. So that would be my one if I was gonna redo anything.
I honestly just love the way your mind works. Like there's so much fucking creativity coming out of that head of yours, dude. Honestly.
I mean, you know me. I love pitches. I throw them out on Twitter because I'm just like, hey, if somebody takes that idea, whatever, it'd be cool that it gets made. But like, I don't know. Especially like if I think of an actor that I'm like currently obsessed with, I'm like, ooh, what could they be in? Like, you know, what would they be in right now? And for my Hellraiser, like, and Pinhead's got to be like real sexy. I'm thinking bald James McAvoy would be a great fucking Pinhead. Like, there's something about bald James McAvoy that is, and when he's like kind of ripped, like when he's the Beast, like when he's filming Split, James McAvoy, and that there's something about him that it's just too much. And I think that would be great.
Like to see James McAvoy play more villains.
Like, I think that would be great. He's a little bit on the short side, so if you want somebody taller, you could maybe go with I'm thinking who's some bald daddies.
Bald. I don't know, Doug Jones, I guess. That's kind of obvious, though.
I mean, everybody throws Mark Strong out. He would be great, but I think he's a little bit too similar to Gus Bradley. So who would be maybe somebody of color to play Pinhead?
I mean, they cast Lakeith Stanfield for every role now for that. So,
dude, I know. I throw Lakeith. I'm one of those people.
So
I
am
have too many pitches where I include Lakeith Stanfield.
I want him to play the Joker.
I throw him out for everything too. But yeah. So I don't know. Bald James McAvoy would be my first choice still, though.
I would definitely see that. I don't know what I'd ever do if I was given the reins for a horror story. I'd probably panic and just give it to somebody else. Probably you, to be honest. I mean, I've been running with the same pitch for like 3 years. A little girl brings her favorite hero to life, then her favorite hero turns evil. And it's funny, the way that premise starts out, like, it sounds very simple. Mm-hmm. Over the years I've known you, it's become like so much fucking more than I originally intended for it. Like, now it's this whole thing about how we view fandom now, and that's very relevant now, and how your role models let you down.
Yeah.
And with us,
like the don't meet your heroes concept.
Yeah, and with a certain magical author being what she is, let's just say how I've been feeling about that has been really helpful in rewrites. So,
I mean, that concept could maybe go to because like maybe I'm trying to think of where that would fit in a horror canon. Don't meet, maybe. Oh, I don't know. I mean, maybe if they did like another like Reanimator movie, and have like, you know, like somebody that's like idolizes fucking Stuart Gordon's character. I forget what his name in the movie is, but or I don't know. But that concept is so. I mean, there's a reason that it's like such a great concept and it's used. Because it can apply to so many things, and like you said, especially like the fandom aspect of it, like you know me and how much I dislike Star Wars by this point, because I mean I'm just, oh man,
I'm glad to see someone being open about it, to be honest, but open in a respectful way, not the Jeremy Griggs way.
Hey, I mean, I mean, Star Wars is cool and all, but it's not that serious. That's my message.
It's the hero's journey
any
with
fandom.
Lightsabers. It's pretty good, but it is overhyped as fuck. I like it, and even I can admit that.
Yeah, I mean, that's my just opinion in any fandom is just, hey, it's not that serious. It's meant, like, when fandoms take the fun out of stuff, then it's like, hey, it's not that serious. Remember? It's a story.
That's
this is
happening
fake.
A lot with Spider-Man now, and I don't know if you saw this, but it's possible I'm going to be working with Brown Table, the YouTuber, voicing Spider-Man in one of his videos, which is
nice.
pretty fucking insane for me as a voice actor. And that's sort of
That'd be
that's
so
like a
fun.
subtle hint. If you ever need a voice actor for one of your movies, I'm looking for work.
Oh, I know. Oh, I got you.
Anyway,
I'm trying to bring silent films back, so there will be some narration needed at some point, I'm
fair
sure.
enough. I think that's more or less gonna wrap us up. This has been so fun talking to you. This feels like catching up with an old friend. Thanks so much for coming on this show, buddy. You got anything else that you want to plug?
Oh yeah, man. Thank you for having me on. Yeah, it is really great just to be able, bounce your ideas off and yeah, it's just like old times, man. But you guys can find me on Twitter and Instagram at Bloody Blunts with 3 O's, Bloody Blunts. And you can check out my podcast, Bloody Blunt Cinema Club. I do a podcast every week. I get real high. I talk about a movie that I love. It's usually just me. I got some guests planned here and there, but it's just me. So if you just want to hear me just ramble, just one horror junkie stoner rambling, check out Bloody Blunt Cinema Club, and check out my YouTube channel, Bloody Blunts.
I have a confession about your podcast. I know it's intended to be like something that you sit and relax to. I've actually been like downloading it and playing it when I go for runs in the morning.
Hey, I mean, whatever. Like, I mean, yeah, it is like it's more relaxing for me. I mean, however it is consumed. Somebody told me they were listening to it while they were cleaning their guinea pigs' cages out. I was like, cool, you're scooping poo while listening to my voice. Like, that's fun.
Honestly, I feel like just the way you talk and like the sort of relaxation of your voice, it actually makes me run faster, and I don't even notice it. So there you go, Bloody Blunt Cinema Club. It can be used as a health and fitness tool, something that we all need after gorging ourselves on carbs during lockdown.
Oh, don't we all know it? Don't we all know it? Yes, please listen in the gym.
That'll wrap us up. Guys, thanks so much for listening to this episode of The Creator's Conscience. I'm back in full swing now. I've got some great guests lined up. I'm going to be talking to an old friend from high school pretty soon who's since become a theater actor. I've got some great authors coming up, and I'm trying really hard to get some like comic writers and possibly like filmmakers on this show. I love talking to people about their creative processes, and DeVaughn, you've been another great addition to this podcast, so thank you again for coming on, Pat.
Of course, thank you.
All right, and always, if you like what you're hearing, you can hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys next time. Yeah, I still keep the same catchphrase from ages ago. Bye, guys.
Yeah.